everyone, and welcome back to this month's video with Maas 45, where today I will be doing a review and reflection of the book A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I covered the first and second book, both in their own videos. I'll have the links down below in the description. And of course, started reading the third book, wanted to post about the third book in my Feyre Illyrian cosplay, so I'm excited to talk about this one. There's a lot of great stuff in it. Some parts I might be summing up very quickly, but there's a lot of detail in this book. See me looking off to the side, I have my notes. So this video will review the content and plot of the third book, followed by my thoughts about the book and series up to date. So we're kind of in the middle now. I know she's posting about potentially a sixth book coming out here hopefully soonish, fingers crossed. I do want to say spoilers are ahead. The book was published in 2017 by Sarah J. Maas, and then I read this book from March 2025 to September 2025. So earlier this year, I finished the second book, did the recording, and I think right before the recording I was starting to read the first couple chapters, and I was like, hold on, let me pause. After I get the video, get it posted, and then just read it throughout the summertime. Nice little summer read. So at the start, there's a prologue type thing. There's a flashback of Rhysand about 2 years ago, before the wall was built. He talks about the war and all of its brutality. Rhysand is looking for Cassie and Azriel through dead bodies. So there's something a bit different, some prologue stuff. So out of the way, let's go and start with talking about A Court of Wings and Ruin, or Part 1, Princess of Caron. Let's see, Feyre is painting in the Spring Court. So remember, Tamlin brought her back to the Spring Court after all that happened in Hybern, with the cauldron, her sisters, and then she left Rhysand in the inner circle. Feyre has to present as someone who is happy to be back, all ladylike, yet she conceals her true identity as High Lady of the Night Court. Tamlin and Lucien come into the room to ask if she was ready to attend a meeting. Feyre reflects on the betrayal of Ianthe, how Lucien and Lane were mates and were far apart. Feyre flashbacks to when she first returned to the Spring Court Manor, and how her room was torn to shreds, and heads to her new room. Lucien remarked on how calm Feyre was and how Feyre would talk to Ianthe despite her knowing Ianthe's true nature. Feyre, Ianthe, Tamlin, and Lucien sit down to dinner, and Ianthe pleads for forgiveness over her selfishness over what happened, and how Hybern made sure not to touch the Spring Court as part of an alliance. Feyre learns that Jurian and perhaps others are approaching the Spring Court. Feyre had learned the cauldron was drained when her sisters were changed, yet she wanted to find out where the cauldron was. Feyre sends information to Rhysand through the Faint Bond. Feyre sees Jurian and 2 commanders, one male Prince Dagden and female Prince Brennigy? Anyway, twin siblings who are the niece and nephew of the King of Hybern. The twins are icy towards the others and only tend to each other. Feyre gives them a warning against the twin shields. The next day, Feyre, Lucien, and the twins go to the wall with Lucien and Feyre, making conversation that they all head back and meet Ianthe, who makes her grand appearance. During the summer solstice, Feyre wears a night court style dress that Aelis had kept. Aelis is still there. Feyre reflects how a year ago she had been dancing with Tamlin, how they had kissed, and now it all felt different. During the ceremony, the first light of summer misses Ianthe and shines on Feyre, who a day or days before moved one of the stones to make sure the light was on Feyre, not Ianthe. She's being really petty. Feyre's being really petty, which I really, really loved. Love to see it. And everyone within the court is in awe. Feyre talks to Rhysand through the bond. She dances with Tamlin and talks to him. He goes back home, tired, to sleep, but is met with nightmares. Lucien arrives in the room and holds her in comfort. Yet Tamlin enters the room, and the two separate, with Lucien apologizes. Yet Feyre intended this all along. So you're kind of seeing a pattern here with Feyre. She's like, oh, these little stones, I want to move them. And then when the light hits, she's like, oh, me? I'm the chosen one? Or, I feel like she did have a nightmare, potentially. I don't think you can just force yourself to have a nightmare. But then she was like like barely dressed and stuff, and then Lucian comes in the room and he's like, oh, let me comfort you, and then Tamlin comes in. We all know Tamlin has jealousy issues, so that doesn't look good. And it keeps getting better. So after a tense breakfast, Lucian, the twins, and Feyre go back to the wall. So the twins are there to kind of like see the wall and all this stuff. And I also like too how it's like day by day type of thing. It's like several days. Let's see. Feyre and Lucian talk about Tamlin's alliance to Hybern and Tamlin's impatience to get Feyre back. They run into children of the Blessed. These are human children. And Feyre enters their minds in true intentions of seeking them out and reveals the truth about Fae and Prythian, that they leave even though the twins wanted to have fun. Lucian thanks Feyre, but she feigns indifference, not sure what he's talking about. In the morning, they realize that the twins broke through the wall, because there's like little holes in the wall, and got to the children of the Blessed and destroyed them. Lucian and Feyre later tell Tamlin about what happened, and how Lucian and Feyre set the bog after the twins, not to kill them, but to scare them and fight them. Feyre taunted Tamlin about his shame, that Tamlin sent furniture flying, and Feyre did not shield herself. Lucian is horrified by Tamlin's action and helps Feyre. Later, Rhysand sends a message down the bond since he felt her get hurt. Beforehand, in the second book, she managed to shield herself, and she didn't really understand what was going on with the shields, but this time she's like, yeah, let him hurt me. And then Rhysand was in a bit of panic, like just trying to send a faint message like, are you hurt? Are you okay? Lucian's like, Tamlin, how could you? What is it? The next day, Tamlin is dealing with the aftermath of 7 Naga who broke into the estate with the keys. Ianthe, who protected them all, and the sentry guard was to be whipped for punishment. Yet Feyre loosened the guard's tongue and said that Ianthe did it, so Naga came in. Tamlin had to deal with it. Apparently they took keys and managed to get into the estate, so someone had to be punished. So the sentry who was on guard was about to be whipped when Feyre is like, say Ianthe did it. He's like, Ianthe did it. When Feyre stepped in to listen to the guard's story and Ianthe challenged her, it then drove a wedge between Ianthe and Tamlin, and with the comment of the twins saying pathetic, Ianthe agrees the law was broken and he would be given 21 lashes, and the remaining guards looked away in disgust over Tamlin's choice to believe the High Priestess over the sentry guard. So now all of his guards are like, why are you going to choose this priestess over us, who you fought with, who protected this court and the state and all this stuff, like you're going to turn against us? So it's not looking good for Tamlin. Feyre's over here just like, oh, peaceful and kind and all this stuff, and inside she's like, the plan is working. I'll be in the night court soon. Let's see, so before Feyre leaves with the others, she says goodbye to Alis, who will go back to the summer court with her nephews. I hope we see her again. She's become one of my favorite characters. Talking of how Hybern is in his armies, Tamlin and Durian went out hunting. Feyre is about to leave to go back to the night court when she hears Lucian being cornered and pressured by Ianthe. When Feyre confronts them, Ianthe says it is a game, and Feyre uses her, like the mind powers, the Deity, to get into Ianthe's mind, to pick up a rush and then crush her hand with the rope. Lucian is shocked, yet the twins arrive behind them, claiming Feyre is a Deity. Feyre had eaten an apple laced with Faebane, and her powers were dwindling, and Feyre managed to explode into night smoke and shadow, and through winnowing and slicing, she killed the twins. Feyre says she is going to the night court, and Lucian agrees to go, mostly to see his mate again, to see Elaine. They have door portals, which in my mind, I kept thinking about the Nightmare Before Christmas, how they have like all the different holidays, and it's like entering and stuff. That's what's going on in my mind. I'm like, wait. But unfortunately, there is no door to the night court, because that would be way too convenient and easy, so no. Oliver's here. If you see me, like, heading off to the side, it's him. Hi, you gonna sit on my lap? Let me see. Just thinking about it. I might jump out. So no door to the night court, because, I guess too, because Rhysand has, like, the protection and the shield around it, so they go through the autumn court door, which Lucian is unsure since that was where he was born and raised and had a lot of trauma, so that was part 1, which was pretty quick and easy. So now we're on to part 2, which is called Cursebreaker. Feyre and Lucian travel through the chilly autumn courts with their traveling clothes and the Faebane laced apples. Yet they managed to find a healthy apple tree and talk about Lucian's birthright. So they settled into a cave for the night to sleep. However, when they awoke, they found that Lucian's brothers were standing in the cave. Lucian and Feyre managed to escape thanks to their setting the cave on fire. They escape outside the cave, back into the cold, as Feyre shuts down the bomb to Rhys to find her before Lucian's brothers and even Varon does. Varon's the High Lord of the Autumn Court. And supposedly Lucian's father, more on that here in a minute. And the High Lord would also not be happy to know that Feyre had a part of his power given to her, and like now she can wield it. The two managed to make it to the winter court. The wine court. Yes, the court filled with wine. There you go. Don't drink it, Feyre. You're an innocent. Winter court. And they arrive at the edge of a lake, a frozen lake, where Eris and the brothers were standing at. Lucian tells Feyre to run, and she does. A fight on the ice ensues as Feyre tries to use the Winter Court powers, but it does not work as Eris tries to grab and attack Feyre. Until a shadow slammed into the ice, and Feyre recognized the Illyrian warrior, and it is Cassian, wings repaired, and Azriel's there too. And then she is released from Eris's grasp and goes. You can see, I'm sorry. And goes off to the side as Cassian and Azriel fight the other brothers, and Cassian and Eris fight. Yet Feyre stops the fight as she realized they would need both the courts, or at least their court. I don't know why I'm thinking Winter Court. I'm thinking when she's in the Winter Court, I'm like, can't you just get like an upgrade to your powers, like a little super boost? But I guess not. So, but she's like, no, stop. Pretty soon we'll be going to like a bear war against Hybern and all this. So, like, put a pause on it, gentlemen. We get the High Lady of the Night Court comment. There is no such thing as a High Lady. There is now. There is now. And Cassian, Feyre, Lucian, and Azriel leave for the Night Court after meeting more in a snowy clearing. They all arrive at the townhouse, and Lucian meets Amren. Feyre realizes her new position as High Lady of the Night Court, and when Lucian asks to confirm this, a voice behind them says she is. Feyre turns to see Rhysand there, and the two hug. This scene is so adorable, so cute. I picture it in my mind like all the time. It's a scene that lives in my head rent free, and one day whenever we get a show, animated or real life, I'm not picky, it's gonna be so good. I wanna be repeating it. I'm gonna cry. It's gonna be awesome. The two talk while and they catch up about their missing each other, even though they don't explicitly say it. I noticed. Yeah, they're like catching up and stuff, but they never say like I missed you explicitly like that. So I try to keep this channel family friendly. So, which I realize in one of the books, that's going to be the challenge. Later down the road later. Right now, Feyre goes later to visit her sisters in the House of Wind. So that's the house on top of the mountain. She goes up there, sees her sisters. First she sees Nesta, who is bitter and angry, but when is she not? More so now than ever. And Elaine is smaller and wispier. And there's a verbal altercation about Elaine and mating, and how sometimes it takes time for the mating bond to settle, just like with Feyre and Rhysand did. Feyre later explains to Lucian the story of her and Rhysand and about the city of Alaris, which Lucian could not believe was peaceful, calm, and bright. Rhysand gives Lucian a room. Feyre and Amren talk about the Book of Breathings. So the Book of Breathings is still there and active. It's a good word. Feyre learns about the territories, more about Miriam and Dracon, and the changes with Hybern that deteriorated after the war. Rhysand did go spy on Hybern, but kept himself busy to not miss Feyre, sobbing. They all planted information to cause old allies to support Valaris in the upcoming war, and cause older territories to turn on each other and start to focus on them than Valaris. They talk about getting the cauldron, which would cause the wall to go down, and for Amren to compromise with Nesta to help out, because she's like, okay, instead of sitting there just brooding, like, help me out with this book. Learn some magic and all that good stuff. Since Amren, Feyre, Elaine, and Nesta, so the four of them, were made from the cauldron, they had to figure out a way to nullify its powers. Cassian and Feyre leave after 2 hours, and the two talk about Nesta. Feyre has dinner with Lucien, Rhysand, and the Inner Circle, and Nesta shows up, and there's conversations about Starfall dress, getting used to living in the Night Court, in the house, and about upcoming meetings. Rhysand says they would be going to the Court of Nightmares to ask Kier, again Mor's father, to fight in the upcoming war. Feyre says she wants to learn how to fly. Amren and Nesta talk about learning more about the cauldron and patching up the wall. Feyre wants Nesta to attend the meeting with the High Lords, but she says no. Later on, Rhysand and Feyre talk about the upcoming trip to Human City and how they would fight to ensure happiness. So that's what they want in the end, peace and happiness. Who doesn't? The next day, Feyre trains with Cassian. He was mad about Feyre and Rhys keeping a secret about her being High Lady, which could have changed everything. That Feyre left to the Spring Court, similar to how Rhysand left for Under the Mountain with Amaranthin, and then never came back until 50 years later. So I think he was feeling a little bit hurt, maybe a little bit traumatized. He's like, yeah, he had the secret, and then he left, just how like Rhysand left. He was our High Lord, now you're our High Lady, but it's like it's kind of risky to tell you all until the last minute. The next day after the ceremony. Nesta then joins the party, and Feyre is in the middle of her and Cassian taunting one another. She begs Rhysand for help down the bond, and Rhys sends Azriel to take time to train her how to fly. Yet Feyre did not know how grueling the task was. Yeah, it sounded pretty rough. Later, Feyre and Rhysand go to a library, which was Feyre's first time ever, and I was like, oh, that's exciting. And then when you realize, like, she was illiterate, she met Rhysand, and she was taught how to read, and it was like, oh. But apparently they had a library in their home, but she didn't understand, like, how to read. Probably just looked at some picture books. But to go to, like, an actual library. Okay, meet your library card. The two browse books, tease and flirt, and Feyre asks what is at the bottom of the pit. So it's kind of like, so cool. It's like just books upon books, and then there's like a big pit in the middle of it all. I think like a Maiden Abyss type of situation. Which Rhysand was not sure, but whatever Cassian saw was pretty scary. Cassian went down over there, came back up, white as a sheet, and was like, No. Feyre has nightmares before going to Human City, and Rhysand comforts her. However, Feyre and Cassian go visit the bone carver in the old prison, and Feyre reveals they have the Book of Breathings, and she needed help in the war, but he asks for the Ouroboros in return. Feyre returns to the House of Wind and tries to talk to her sister about the adjustments to be Fae. Nesta wants to train and does not understand why she cannot. Feyre and Nesta leave to talk, and Lucien goes into the room with Elaine, and Feyre uses her to see his thoughts about Elaine and learns about Kesminda, Lucien's past love interest. Afterwards, Nesta goes and tells him to leave. Feyre says she was moving them all to the townhouse. They were all flown down to the townhouse the next day. We see some Azriel and Elaine action, and even Feyre calls it into action. Yes, those two, Azriel and Elaine, so cute, but Elaine is made of Lucien, so. The next day, they all head to Human City, and Feyre sat in the chair while Rhys perched on the side. Remember in the last book, Tamlin sat in like this big great throne chair, and Feyre had this tiny little seat. Rhysand was like, nah girl, this is your chair, I'm gonna sit here, you do what you want, I'm here. So after Feyre had a bit of fun, doing her little dark side things, there was music and dancing as Kira went to talk to Rhysand, Azriel, Mor, and Feyre about him joining them for the upcoming war. However, Eris appears, and Rhysand is trying to get on the Autumn Court side. Kira says he will help if he can have access to Valaris, and Eris will urge his father to attend their High Lord's meeting if they support his claim to the throne. However, later on, Mor is furious with Rhysand, who made a deal with Eris, and Amren explains how the bone carver will need to be bound to a body like she was to be set free. It's a tense moment among the group as information is shared, and Feyre tells Rhys she feels heavy, and he even says, honestly, he is not doing so good. So yeah, like, They all knew going into Hume City, it's like, we gotta go secure, we gotta get him on our side, he's gonna want something, because that's what he does. But then another member appears, and if you know from last book what Eris did to Moore, terrible, so of course she has every right to be upset. We stand the queen here, we stand Queen Moore. So, she's a queen, she's not actually a queen, but yeah. So there's a lot of tension in the group right now, with war coming up, and trying to figure out stuff, trying to get information. You don't know what's going to come into the future. It's pretty intense, but it's good that Feyre and Rhysand are talking to one another. Unlike a certain someone, Lucian sits with Elaine, trying to heal her mind with their mating bond, which I didn't know you could do. Interesting. Azriel trains Feyre to use her wings, telling her the story of how Nicaea saved Miriam even though her wings were small and deformed. Alright, so this is a quick summary. Quick summary before the war meeting, which is pretty much like the middle of the book. Like you can see where it is with the blue sticky note. So quick summary. Feyre is still training, learning more about the magic and powerful creature/rulers of Prythian. Lucian and Elaine test out their bond, much to Nesta's fury. Feyre and Nesta get attacked by the King of Hyburn's ravens in the library, and Feyre frees the creature from the library with the bond. Elaine, they realized, is a seer, and how she could see that the Sixth Queen was alive, and Lucian says he will go find the Queen. Rhys worries about Feyre's safety since Hybern was able to get through the shield of the Night Court. Hybern attacks the Summer Court, and the Inner Circle and the army go to fight with them against Hybern. Feyre tells the Bone Carver to pick something else than the Ouroboros, and he says no. Feyre returns from battle of the Summer Court to see Elaine up and about and baking, and Nesta was curious about why she went to battle, and Feyre said that she had to and people needed her. On the day of the meeting, Feyre wears her remodeled Starfall dress and a new crown from Rhys' family vault. Nesta at the last minute decides to join them for the meeting. Before Feyre and Rhysand enter, Feyre says she sees all of Rhys and loves him, and he tells her she vows to no one. So now we're at the meeting. We made it. So it takes place in the Dawn Court, which sounds so nice. In a large room with a pool of water in the center and chairs around the area, Feyre takes in all the other High Lords. Feyre meets Thessian, High Lord of the Dawn Court, Khaleesi's, the High Lord of Winter. More excitedly greets Vivian, Khaleesi's wife. Feyre then meets Helion, Lord of the Day Court, who asks if Tamlin knows that Feyre is there, and Feyre positions as High Lady, but Rhys wonders if Tamlin will arrive. That is the question. Him and the Autumn Court Lord, those two, they're kind of like, we didn't see an RSVP, but they might still be here, so we'll see. Helion is then transfixed on Nesta and how she was made, and Feyre explains how she and her sisters were made and Tamlin's betrayal to her. Moore catches up with Vivian before the meeting. Tarquin then arrives, so Lord of the Summer Court, which Cassian is now banned from the Summer Court because he wrecked one building just from helping in the battle. He wrecked a building, and helping the battle did not lift the tension between them. Then the High Lord of Autumn arrives. Feyre remembers the kindness of the mother/wife of the High Lord of the Autumn Court had given her under the mountain. So she's there too, and she's absolutely happy to revive the cosplay her alone. But yeah, she was like very sweet to Feyre in the first book and like helping her out because Feyre helped save Lucian. And I feel like she was really grateful, so whenever she sees her again, she's like, oh, I remember you. Of course, she was human then, Faye now, but don't mind me, cat. Let's see. Ares is also there. Of course he is. Thessian begins the meeting, and as Rhysand speaks up, Tamlin appears out of nowhere. Dramatic entrance. Him and I, they have that in common. Tamlin taunts Feyre. Oh, this part was so gross to read through, but whatever. Tamlin taunts Feyre and Rhysand in front of the High Lords. Feyre's little retort about how Rhysand took her in the night, but it was actually daytime. It's like, we took her in the night. And she's like, well, it was day when I left you. Like, I was like, okay, go High Lady. Then Tamlin comments on Feyre's strange noises during and instead Rhysand answering that, Asriel speaks up and says, "Be careful how you speak about my high lady." You love him so much. Okay. Let's see. Rhysand and Tamlin go on about what happened under the mountain, what happened in the Winter Court, and what happened especially with the children there. It's kind of sad to read. It was a tough spot for Feyre and Rhysand. They talk with the others about Hybern and who would be their allies in the war. Tamlin says he is against Hybern and gives them information. But he just snaps his fingers and like all these books and maps come up and stuff. And it's like, how do you know those are the right ones? Like, so I'm gonna fact check it. Then doubt creeps into who is loyal to Hybern, to the point where Feyre felt her power slowly awake, and when Tamlin began to speak about Feyre's reputation after her and Rhysand sealed the mating bond, Rhysand used his powers to shut Tamlin's mouth and take the words right out of it, showing who was the most powerful High Lord in Prythian. So he wasn't already tense enough. Yeah, Tamlin coming in here is causing a stir, and Rhysand's just like, I'm gonna shut this man up. And he does, and he's like, alright, so y'all saw that. You can do it again. We got enough power here, so let us have a meeting. Rhysand reminds them all about his powers, especially like the mind powers. Like, I can just go in your minds and scramble a few things, and then y'all could agree, but he wants everybody to do this willingly. Tarquin rescinds the blood rubies, that was from the last book, and Rhys believes Tamlin will join in the fight against Hybern. He's like, you might seem like you're on his side, but overall you're probably not going to be. Baron and Eris pick at Lucian, who is still at the Night Court, and Eris makes a comment about Moore, which has Asriel upset. And he goes over, don't know how much I want to say on YouTube, but he starts like choking him and stuff, until Feyre manages to make him stop, and Asriel goes and sits with her. Helion then mentions destroying Hybern's Faeblade, so Faeblade is very deadly against Fae. So that way they cannot use it in the war. So Hybern's got like a surplus of it, use it on weapons, food, fires and stuff, make people weak or kill them and stuff. So they're like, if we get rid of that, we'll be okay-ish. Still might die, but at least we got one thing down. And then they all had to take an antidote, starting with Feyre. There's like a alchemist type person that came in, told them to take it, so Feyre took it first. The same story is repeated about Feyre and the betrayal of her sisters, and Feyre leaving Tamlin, and with Baron picking on them, that tension started to rise within the courts, and potentially not able to join the armies. Feyre explodes into a fire-white light towards Baron. Feyre uses, I believe, the Day Court's light, and Baron uses fire powers, and Rhysand manages to stop Feyre. So beforehand, Asriel was like trying to attack one of the members of the Autumn Court. Feyre stops him. Feyre's like, no, I'm going to attack the other person now, and then Rhysand's like, no. The High Lords realized Feyre had a bit of their power from when they gave her their powers to help her live after she died under the mountain. So after she died, she got like each of the little powers, a little bit like Avatar, a little bit like how Callum's getting his arcane magic and all that stuff. She gets a little bit of it. But it's weird that they didn't notice. Even though Tarquin's like, okay, like I kind of feel my power here and there flicker, but we didn't put two and two together. He's been living for hundreds of years. Like, what? Anyway, however, when Baron makes a mean comment at Feyre, Rhysand dissolves his chair and he falls flat on the floor. So, yeah, everybody in the Night Court's just a little bit tense and picky at this point, and they're just taking it out on the Autumn Court. Nesta talks to Baron about how all the other High Lords about their future and how they need to protect the lands they care so much about. Baron says he will consider it and winnows away. The others then stand up and say they will fight against Hybern. I don't know if Tamlin does. At that point. However, after some time of starting to build an alliance, they all break and talk about other things, especially when Helion comes in. Feyre learns that he likes males and females, and Rhys teases her about having another person in their bed, which Moore calls out their bond talking. Yeah, they're like talking through their mind, and Moore's just like, okay, you two, knock it off. Take it somewhere else. Helion says he once loved the Lady of the Autumn Court and how Helion was Lucian's father. Dun, dun, dun. That's why he's getting picked on all the time, because he's like not even like Autumn Court. He's like, what is Helion? Lord of the Day Court, and then she's Lady of the Autumn Court? Like, poor guy. After a meal, Rizan and Feyre retire for the night and talk about the meeting and their concerns about Tamlin being so close. They didn't leave. Next morning, Feyre found out that Helion slipped out of Moore's room. They all go to talk about the upcoming battle plans, like what are we gonna do, until Nesta faints, which, when nothing is revealed to be wrong with her, they realize that it could be the cauldron. The cauldron and Nesta, like caused a Nesta took a part of its power, so whenever something goes on with the cauldron, Nesta can feel it too. Then they all felt a shuddering in the earth, and Rizan used his magic to detect the King of Hybern, used the cauldron on the wall to attack it, and that the wall was gone. There is no wall. The wall is completely gone. They all say their goodbyes, and they go back to the Valaris townhouse. Elaine decides to talk to Grayson. That was the person she was engaged to when she was a human. About moving humans out of Hybern's way of destruction. Cassie and Nesta share a moment about hurting others to protect herself, and Feyre gets Amryn to go to the library to meet the creature Braxis. That was the creature that's down below. It was that cinnamon roll on there. We love the Braxis. Feyre frees the creature to help in the war for freedom from the library. He wants a window. I just want to see the stars. It's like anything for you to do. World domination, you can have. It's so funny how the monsters, like the cereal, Braxis, the witch still kind of creeps me out just because of her house. Bone Carver's a bit creepy, but so those two, Braxis and Cereal, they're my favorites. Favorite monsters. Feyre frees the creature to help in the war. Feyre returns after making the bargain and tells Rosand, who was fine with that decision, but was sure Cassian would not be happy about it though, so yeah. Feyre is over the Bone Carver, said she could not find the Ouroboros. They leave the beauty of Valaris and return to the Illyrian war camp. It's gonna be a while until they see Valaris. Alright, part 3, High Lady. Feyre, Zan, Nesta, Cassian, Azriel, and Moore go to the Illyrian war camp and meet with Lord Devlon. I'm gonna say Revlon, not sponsored, but yeah. They talk about the wall being down, and Lord Devlin does not like that Nesta is there, even calling her a witch. And then Moore reveals that Elaine is also there. The girls then go to the tent. Moore glamours Elaine to look human, and Elaine promises to keep the seer talk to a minimum. She just talks out of random, and they're just like, okay, that's fine. And then later on, they're like, actually, what you said was true. Like, what are you doing? But when they figure out that she's a seer, then they're like, just tone it down, just a smidge. Not in front of the humans. It's a one rule, not in front of the humans. They go to Grayson and his father's house, where they greet Lord Nolan and introduce themselves, and to have them open their gates to any families now that the wall was down. So now that the wall is down, Hybern's from through land, any families that are in that path, we need to save them. We need to save as many humans as possible. It was pretty admirable, given the Fae, and the tree and everything. Now they're but now you have, humans now made Fae, then made Nesta, Elaine, Feyre. However, as the conversation intensifies and the Lord seems to know more than what the group wanted him to believe, Jurian appears from the door. He also has that ability too. That's why him and Tamlin get along. Cute. Anyway, Jurian's there. However, he says he's not the enemy, and that he has been fighting Hybern from the inside. Jurian informs them that Hybern will launch their attack tomorrow from the summer court. Grayson is disgusted by Elaine now that she is Fae and says he no longer wants to marry her. That's so sad. How dare you? I'll turn in a Nesta here in a minute. I do have a Nesta cosplay now, and another cosplay coming up here soon. You can check those out on my cosplay account, Instagram, TikTok. Jurian seems to join the inner circle and how he trusted Feyre about the children of the blessed back in the spring court. He was like, yeah, you did the right thing back then. They all go back to the Illyrian war camp. Moore and Feyre talk about Elaine's predicament, and they all get ready for the upcoming battle Hybern would have on them, gathering any potential last-minute allies. The Illyrian warriors and allies sneak up on Hybern's army. Feyre stands with Moore a bit away and watches Cassian fight. When it is over, Tarquin draws the remaining soldiers, I think from their own bodies, like their own water out of their bodies. That's a bit gross, but kind of cool. I don't know how to describe it. I'm kind of like, oh, that would hurt so bad though. Oh. Yeah, that. Later, Rhys greets Feyre, who she noticed he looked tired, and Nesta generally tends to Cassian wounds, and there's a tender moment between them. Oh yes, Nesta and Cassian, will they or won't they? We'll find out here soon, like in another year. I'll finish that book. After Feyre tends to the wounded, she joins Rhys in bed for something here. Then they talk about the outcomes of the battle and war. However, in the following days, Azriel appears and says Hybern's courts were headed between summer and autumn, and we're headed towards winter. There's now glamour over the current camp, and the others sneak away to where Hybern's true army is headed to. However, the plan to fight the army was taking a while until the line Kiera was holding was breached, and Feyre realized that this was once again not the true force. So it felt like Hybern was just planning these little fake armies around and stuff, kind of distracting them from where he was actually going. So she's like, well, I know somebody who would know. The cereal! So she goes to Elaine and says, since you have the ability to see, you can use your seer powers to help me find the cereal. So Elaine uses the magic, and she sees that the cereal is like in the middle of the map. Not too far away from where they are, which is obviously convenient. Cereal, so in this map, whatever you are. Feyre one is to the middle, also near the Weaver of the Woods house. The cereal and Feyre meet. I liked how he described like trembling dawn, doe eyes, you can feel / seer. That's pretty. Like, the cereal's just sitting there having a cup of tea, and you just see like these brown, like doe eyes peering at him. He's like, oh, a visitor. And then they like disappear, and he's like, I think I'm getting a real visitor here soon. The cereal says to use Nesta to call to the cauldron as light calls to lake. They talk about Braxis and the Bone Carver and the Ouroboros and how Feyre was afraid of it. That's why she's not retrieving it. It's not because she probably doesn't know where it is. She's like, I don't want to see inside of it because I don't want to see my true self. The cereal tells Feyre she can only decide what breaks her. Just as the cereal is about to give an answer on how to stop Hybern, an ash arrow pierces the cereal and it falls back screaming. Feyre then hears Ianthe's voice in the woods. Ah, yes, the classic, I'm about to tell you what's going on. And then gets hit with something, and a new challenger approaches, and it's Ianthe. Ianthe brings up her hurt hand and how it took a while to heal, and now they had new shields put on her mind so Feyre could not hurt her again. The cereal silently pleads for Feyre to run, which she does, and Ianthe follows her into the Weaver of the Woods cottage. The Weaver quickly greets Feyre, and when the Weaver asks Feyre, little wolf, what are you doing in here? Feyre says she bought dinner, and once Ianthe is inside, Feyre leaves, slamming the door shut. And then Feyre runs away as Ianthe and the two guards that were with her are inside screaming as the Weaver of the World enjoys her DoorDash, provided by Feyre. Leave a 5-star review. Feyre goes back to the cereal who is dying, and she stays with the cereal who tells her, leave this world a better place than we found it. Feyre cries over the cereal's passing and is found by Helion, who then winnows them back to camp. Feyre returns and Rhysand tends to her before they both go to a tent where Cassian is laying down with the healer healing his wounds. When Cassian wakes up, Rhys reminds him of being a High Lord and how serious all this was, for Cassian to not be reckless, and that they won barely, but Kira's lines had taken hard hits. Moore gets into a heated argument with Feyre about her whereabouts during the battle. Moore reminds Feyre she is her High Lady. It's funny how Rhys is like, I'm the High Lord, listen to me, stop being reckless. And Moore's like telling Feyre, if you're a High Lady, stop being reckless. Oh my gosh. Feyre was about to bring up a touchy subject, and Moore orders her out of the tent. Feyre leaves the tent to see Amryn standing there. Amryn's just like, could you all, like, get along? We lived here for thousands and thousands of years. Nesta uses her powers to help figure out where the cauldron is. Feyre goes into Nesta's mind, which is open, wide, dark, sharp gate. Feyre sees the armies, and when Nesta releases the items, they find out Hybern was close to the family's estate, where Nesta and Lane were staying when Feyre was first made, and living between like spring and Nightcourt and all that stuff, and she went to visit her sisters. Like, that's where the estate was, and that's where Hybern was headed towards. However, during all this, they found out that a door, a mental door, if you will, was left open, and the cauldron was now watching them. The ones who were made could hear the cauldron singing to them. However, the three girls realized that it was too late, that Elaine was taken. Azriel and Feyre go to get Elaine from the camp. Feyre disguises herself as Ianthe. I guess the king doesn't know he's dead quite yet. And the two venture into the middle of Hybern's armies. Durian comforts Feyre. Feyre sees a child being tortured. Oh no, he doesn't comfort her. He confronts her and be like, "Hi, you're not Ianthe. We're Feyre." Feyre sees a child being tortured like Claire was. Azriel finds Elaine and they manage to save her and the child. Tamlin's also there and also tries to help out, so Azriel can find it with Elaine and the girl in his arms, who I also think like his wings were hurt, and Feyre also manages to fly on her own, finally. It was a very intense scene that you can't stop reading. A lot to get into, but it is just like you're sitting there just like page after page, like, are they gonna make it? Is the king gonna get them? They all return, and Feyre and her sisters hug onto each other tight and even sleep like in the same bed. It's kind of similar like how they used to sleep in like the shared bed at the cabin, and they'd be all bundled up tight in the winter. It's kind of like that. It's like a different similarity. Feyre wakes up in the morning and Callie's army has arrived, so the Winter Court is here. Woohoo! Mor and Feyre apologize to one another. Mor confesses she loves females and not males as much, which was her secret all along. And Feyre supports her. Supportive High Lady. There is a war meeting and how Hybern had exhausted their armies with the winnowing and glamoring, and how Nesta observed that Hybern was doing all this in spite of what they had done. Amryn approaches them and says they can use the army to distract them, while her, Feyre, Nesta, and Elaine can approach the cauldron and stop everything once and for all. It's really what they need to do. Stop the cauldron, stop everything. They would all have to touch the cauldron to stop it. The others take the humans from the lands to safety, despite their screaming. Feyre goes and retrieves the Ouroboros, seeing herself inside of it, her true self, which is a scary wolf form. She gives the Ouroboros to the bone carver, who receives it and agrees to help. As they all prepare for battle, Azriel gives Elaine the truth teller, a dagger he wouldn't let just anyone touch, and Feyre notices a small bit of into seeds. I have a Rhys gives an inspiring speech, incorporating each of the members of it. So at the battlefield, Feyre surveys the lands and the troops. Roseanne makes sure the other High Lords are ready, as she would need to go to the cauldron. And I do believe like Roseanne is probably worried first and foremost about her safety than anybody else's. Feyre offers a mating gift to Roseanne, how she had a tattoo of the moon phases on her back, and the bone carver joins the battle. Raxus also joins, and Roseanne offers a mating bond. His tattoos on his neck, and the weaver appears wearing another jewel, wearing Ianthe's jewel, as the long-awaited family reunion sets on Hybern's truth. So you have three of the most powerful, most oldest. We don't have a serial anymore. It's obvious. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah, we don't have them, but we have these three. And they're just released onto the army. So everybody else can sit back, relax. JK, we're not doing that. So during the battle, Viren, Durian, and Tamlin appear to help out where they can. However, Nesta senses a change within the cauldron and calls out for Cassie, and he tries to fly towards her. But just then, the cauldron releases an energy that destroys the other shields, while Roseanne manages to warn the other Hylos with their shields up as strongly as they can. But the light destroys the bone carver, so we've lost the cereal, and we've lost the bone carver. Who's next? Oh, bye-bye. I don't think you like that. Now you want your house. I'm a cat creature. We need a cat creature. The situation appears dire, yet they hear a horn sound, and they see fleets of ships. And it is Miriam and Dracon's League, and not only that, but Feyre, Nesta, and Elaine's father approaching, with a ship named after each of them. Suddenly the luck changes. There is Vasa, the lost queen, that sixth queen, in her true form, a firebird, fighting the armies of Hybern. Nesta and Cassian go to distract the king of Hybern, to have him go near her, while Feyre and Amryn go to the cauldron. So yeah, everything's looking bleak, not looking so great, because the cauldron's just like, blast of energy, here you go, destroy. It's not looking the greatest, and then all these ships appear out of nowhere. I'm sure it's not out of nowhere. I think they explain later on how they managed to get there, but yeah, they come in. Vasa's there, Firebird form by day, Sleepy Human by night, and all this stuff. The girl's father is there with all these ships and all this, so that's when they're like, okay, like our luck's changed, we can do this. So Nesta and Cassian go this way, go distract the king of Hybern. Feyre and Amryn go figure out the cauldron. So Feyre goes with Amryn to the cauldron. Along the way, the Weaver and the king of Hybern have a conversation, and the Weaver is killed. So 3 out of 4. Waxy is red. Red is adorable. So just darkness. So cute. Anyway, the king goes towards Nesta. So he moves away to Nesta, and Amryn and Feyre reach the cauldron. Feyre puts her hand on the cauldron and starts to chant, but then she realizes something was wrong. Amryn had lied to Feyre, and as she tries to activate the cauldron to her will, Feyre sees how the cauldron was calling up to Nesta, like caused a like, and how Nesta stole the power from the cauldron. Feyre sees the king of Hybern approach Cassian and Nesta, so somehow in Feyre's mind she can like teleport in her mind to like different places of the battle, so she sees Cassian and Nesta confronting the king of Hybern, who's also holding a sword to their father's throat, like the girl's father's throat, and all this. As Hybern asks for what has been stolen, the father protests and Hybern kills him just by snapping his neck. Nesta's rage and true power shows, and as he taunts her, Cassian pleads for her to stop. He's gotta be hurt by this point. Feyre pleads for the cauldron to stop, yet no one was prepared for Elaine to creep behind the king and place the truth teller through his throat, telling him to not touch her sister. Nesta came over to rip the king's head off quite violently. That was very descriptive. Cauldron then whips Feyre back into the present moment where she's at, but before then she sees that Rhys was hurt bad, and then she goes back into the present moment, which now Varian is there, and Varian and Amryn have a thing going on, and he managed to find out where they were, and they watch as Amryn, whose true form was released and recognized as a fiery phoenix, and she breaks the cauldron into thirds as she goes and destroys all of Hybern ships. And that was pretty much the message from the serial, that she was the one that had to be there to destroy like where the enemy was coming from once and for all. Like if we go and attack the ships, they won't be coming in, they won't be going into our ranks and our forces and all this stuff. So if we get the ships, even though I don't think they had ships to sail out there and fight pirates, seem to be so cool. Pirate fair, let's go. But no, so she was like, "You go into my true form. I got this figured out. Feyre, I'm sorry for tricking you." I think she apologizes later on. But yeah, she destroys it all. Feyre and Rhys, okay, so Rhys comes up to the cauldron, which is broken into thirds, and they use their magical powers to heal the cauldron to put it back together again. However, the victories were short-lived, as Feyre noticed just how badly Rhys was hurt and how she felt the bond grow still and void. She cries out for help, and the other High Lords do the same thing that happened with her, giving each a bit of their power to Rhysand, with Tamlin being the last one and telling Feyre to be happy. Rhys wakes up in the most dramatic way Rhysand could, and Feyre is relieved. Amryn also survived and was saved by the others, and it seems she was now more human than before. I don't know what she was before, some sort of maid, fae type thing. I'm still trying to figure out her whole thing, but now she's like much more human than before. Or I guess much more fae-like. I don't think she's human. Moore takes Cassian to a healer. Feyre and Nesta and Elaine give their father a fae burial. Lucian appears to check in with them. They meet Miriam and Vassa. Feyre recalls a meeting with all the High Lords, fae, humans, warriors, and Feyre proposes a new treaty. They're not sure if Nesta still had powers or if it was broken when the cauldron was broken. However, they all arrive home in Valaris. There's hope for the future. Feyre's note to Tamlin. Elaine wants to build a garden, and Feyre mulls over Durin's words of hope for a future of peace. Then the last 2 chapters, Rhysand reflects on being alive, seeing Valaris again, and of course Feyre being happy. And then the last chapter is Feyre's point of view, talking about hunting down Braxis. I gotta find him. As her and Rhys fly over Valaris, taking the fact that they were home together again. And that's the end. I usually managed to do that pretty quick. I thought it was gonna be a while, because it's a pretty thick book, but the second book pretty much goes over most of the magic and the backstories and why the war's coming, and this one was like, we are going to be at war, we are at war, so that was A Court of Wings and Ruin, the third book of A Court of Thorns and Roses. Yeah, Thorns and Roses. I gotta watch myself, because sometimes I'll put Throne, and I know the author wrote Throne of Glass, and I'm just like, alright, some final thoughts. So, I did enjoy this book. I still think the second one's my favorite at the moment, but this one was also very good. I liked in the beginning, Feyre was like pretending to love Tamlin, but she was like really disgusted by him and his actions. She had to act like she was before, and now that she knew the truth, she made sure to make the Spring Court members turn on each other so that way she could escape. So that's pretty daring, pretty bold, pretty brave, but after learning all the truth and stuff and what was going on, she's like, I do a little trickery here, and then as soon as I can, I'm gonna go through a door, and then do that kind of thing. I still think of the doors from Nightmare Before Christmas. I hope you all know what scene I'm talking about, but I still think of that. Felt more talking in this book. There's definitely quite a bit of dialogue. Even just sitting at the dinner table, there's talking. At the meeting, there's talking. In the library, there's talking. There should be no talking in the library. That's great. More world building, finding out more information, especially as alliances were starting to build. And you're kind of also finding out too what happened to the courts after Amaranthine as well. Because we really just knew what happened with Spring. Night Court a little bit. Yeah, like Summer. I guess Summer too was in the second book. Definitely Winter, Autumn-ish. Dang, Dawn knows much. I didn't think about it. Maybe one day. Maybe it won't matter. I thought too, like, the book was broken down into parts and the third one was called High Lady. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about that idea. Like, the first one I was kind of like, ooh, yes, that sounds good. The second one I was like, Cursebreaker? Maybe. But the third one I was like, nah, I think something cooler would have been like, the Battle for the Wall, or, Battle against Hybern, or something like that. But, yeah, it showed how much Feyre was starting to have like this power and influence with like High Lords of the court. I guess this is where I was going. I just think of like other books that I've read where like the last one is like the battle to protect and all this stuff. This one's just like High Lady. It's like, everybody knows at this point she's a High Lady. But then at the end she's like pleading with the High Lords, like, save him, spare him, we need him and all this stuff, and then they give part of their powers. Knowing that they gave part of their powers to Feyre, so you all need to watch out for these two. Oh god. Oh yeah, that's what I have next. Yeah, the powerful High Lord then dies. Now that he has the same power as Feyre was given, what will come in the future, especially since he was already powerful before. Now he has like all these little powers, and then Feyre has all these little powers. She's practicing them. I want to see these two will be powerful. Yeah, I don't know. Food for thought, I guess. Let's see. Writing style seemed more elegant, poetic. I mean, as sad as the Cyril's death was, Oh my gosh, I could have cried. I did cry. No, my baby, I love him so much. And all that stuff, like, you know, the ashes being scattered in the wind. There's definitely some moments where it's like very poetic. For a book that was pretty gnarly in a sense, of course there are war and stuff. It's all mud and dirt and yuck. It was beautifully described. So I did like the writing style in this one a bit more. Starfall is still my favorite scene though. Don't get me wrong. It was interesting. High Lord's stuck in their ways. They don't want to go to war, accept the resources, maybe a new treaty, which did happen at the end. So they were just like, nah, we've been doing this for years. It's been fine. It's like, everything's like at your doorstep. It's coming over. It's going to destroy everything. So I'm glad Nesta spoke up this one time. I'm glad that Nesta spoke up to say, like, hey, like your lands, your people, like everything like that, it's going to be lost. Do you want that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, join the alliance. Seeing the sisters' minds in gate. Oh, I don't think I mentioned Elaine. Like, I think she went in there, enters Elaine's mind, and it's like this flowery gate. It's very simple, very elegant. And then, like, Nesta's, like, these, like, barbed wire, very sharp, like, solid iron, and all this stuff. It was just like, you see your sister's mind shield and everything. It's crazy. I think that'll be really cool. Animated or real life, again, not picky. Whichever one comes first. That's gonna be really cool, is like seeing inside these minds and what that's gonna look like. So, sad face. Oh god, I'm so sad. Auntie had it coming. We'll put it that way. So, no more cereal, no more tea, no more Feyre just going and trying to find the cereal in the forest and be like, tell me what's going on and stuff. So, yeah. Big sad. I'm glad that Feyre was there with the cereal until the end. So, once a human managed to catch it, and Roseanne was like, I've been trying to catch it for years. Like, how'd you do that? To now, you know, saying goodbye and everything. It was well done. One of my favorite characters. And then we lost the Bone Carver, and we lost the Weaver. Braxius. I'm almost tempted to say like, Braxius, go back to libraries, stay there. Give you windows, as many windows as you want. Just don't die. Don't die. My other thought was, are all of these bargains in the end going to add up to something? Like, it just feels like, every single book, there's like a new bargain. It's like, okay, like, want me to heal you? Make a bargain. You want this? Make a bargain. You want the most powerful creature in the world? Make a bargain. Like, is it all going to add up in the end? Or is it like, once it's done, it's done? And then you just have a cool tattoo for the rest of your life? Because now the Weaver's gone, and Roseanne has a tattoo on his neck. Like, how do you... You shouldn't call it a bargain. I don't know. I'm sure there's a wiki page on it somewhere. I'm just wondering. It did seem quite a bit this book. Compared to the last two, the first one definitely was Feyre was making bargains to live and stuff. But I don't know. Just curious. Food for thought. There is, I forget the channel's name. I know I should have looked that up beforehand, but there is a channel. There's like a project where they take like certain scenes out of the book, like certain chapters, and then they like recreate it like live action type thing. And they did one with like, you know, the battle scene and Rezane's speech and all this stuff. And it was really well done. So I enjoyed watching that. And I was like, more, yes. No, we love our queen. I'm glad she finally spoke her truth. I was like, it's about time, girl. I think we all knew. It was like, enough of this. It's glad she can find him fair. And Feyre was like, go, I got you. And then she's like, I'm gonna play matchmaker. And Moira's like, okay. I'm glad they made up in the end. I don't like it when the inner circle fights among themselves. You can go fight bad creatures, you can get monsters on your side, whatever. But when the inner circle fights and there's tensions and stuff, it's like, no. You're all friends, you're family, like, stop it. Go to family therapy. All of y'all. Oh gosh. Let's see, I did find like the Firebird essential thing with Vasa and then Amryn a little bit repetitive. It would have been cool if like Amryn was like the Firebird, the Phoenix, or maybe something a bit darker, or maybe if it was like different colors, like if Vasa was like red and oranges, and Amron's was like blues and blacks and like grays and stuff. Like that'd be pretty different to see, but I don't know. I was like, there's other really cool characters, cool stuff, but it's fine. So overall, great story with some tension, some action, and then seeing how it all played out in the end. Because it was funny because I was thinking about this too when I was typing it up, and it's funny on the second book when Fair was first in the Night Court with Rhysand, he's like, "Oh yeah, war's coming," and she's like, "War? What do you mean war?" And now all of a sudden, war's here. It's all different now. And it did happen, and now that most of the war is over, now that they would all have to recover and start anew. So I'll have to heal from this. So war is over. And with that, this review reflection thing is over too. So thank you all so much for sticking with me while I did this. Hopefully, I probably blundered in some parts. It's a lot of magic and trying to understand world building. I get most of my information from the book or from Wikipedia, or like the Court of Thorns rules wiki, and I'm just trying to understand it. And it's a lot. So, yes, on to the next book, which is it's on the back. I don't know how to do that. The next book is A Court of Frost and Starlight. That one I'm pretty excited about because it looks pretty tiny. It's like a tiny book, so hopefully I'll get that published here soon. It'll be a nice little cozy winter read, and then we'll do the 5th book. And kind of see where that goes. I already have like book series in my head, different books that I want to look through, so read through, talk about good stuff. But if there is a book series you want me to read, let me list them because they're going to show up in the comments. 4th Wing, Crescent City, Throne of Glass. Is it Blade's Assassin? Assassin Blade? Uh-oh. Blade something. There's a Blade somewhere. But yeah, those are the next couple series of books after Court of Thorns and Roses. But I've been enjoying this series so far. I like the memes. I like the little fan project that they're doing with each of the scenes. So yeah. I like the art styles. I love looking at artwork. Oh, especially when it's Rhysand and Fair. I'm just like, oh. And it's Starfall. I'm like, oh. And they're holding hands. I'm like, oh. That's so cute. Oh, it's cute. So yeah, just want to say, thank you all so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. If there's a book series I should check out in the distant future, or if there's a part in A Court of Wings and Ruin that you enjoyed, do let me know. So I hope everyone's taking care, staying safe, and I'll see you next time. And as always, peace, love, and kindness. Bye everyone!